The tragedy at the Dyatlov Pass is one of the most mysterious incidents in the history of tourism. On the night of February 2, 1959, a group of 9 hikers led by Igor Dyatlov perished under mysterious circumstances in the mountains of the northern Urals. Some of the bodies were found without clothing, while others bore severe injuries, leading to dozens of conspiracy theories. Despite numerous investigations and hypotheses, the exact cause of their deaths remains a subject of debate and speculation. All members of the expedition were part of the same hiking club and knew each other well. 6 students from the Polytechnic Institute: Igor Dyatlov, group leader, a 5th-year student at the radio engineering faculty of the Ural Polytechnic Institute; an experienced hiker known for his responsibility and leadership qualities; Zinaida Kolmogorova, a student at the radio engineering faculty of the Ural Polytechnic Institute, had extensive hiking experience, known for her cheerful and sociable nature; Yuri Doroshenko, a student at the physical technical faculty of the Ural Polytechnic Institute, experienced in difficult expeditions, noted for his physical endurance; Lyudmila Dubanina, a student at the engineering and economics faculty of the Ural Polytechnic Institute, known for her energy and resilience in hiking; Alexander Kolovatov, a student at the physical technical faculty of the Ural Polytechnic Institute, distinguished by his analytical mind and serious approach to tasks; Yuri Yudin, a student at the economics faculty of the Ural Polytechnic Institute, the only survivor as he left the expedition due to illness before the difficult part of the route. 3 graduates of the Polytechnic Institute: Rustam Slobodin, a graduate of the mechanical faculty of the Ural Polytechnic Institute, worked as an engineer. He was passionate about sports, especially skiing and running; Nikolai Thibault Brignol, a student at the construction faculty of the Ural Polytechnic Institute, known for his kindness and helpful nature; Georgy Krivonishenko, a graduate of the construction faculty of the Ural Polytechnic Institute, worked as an engineer. Passionate about music and photography, he was the heart of the company. Later, they were joined by Semyon Zolotaryov, an instructor from a tourist base. The hikers had a detailed plan. They were supposed to ski 350 kilometers and ascend the peaks of Mount Otorten and Oiko Chakur. The expedition was classified as extremely difficult. By February 12th, they were expected to reach their final destination and send a telegram to the sports club. However, something went wrong, and the group never made contact. On their way to the abandoned settlement of the Second Northern Mine, where their ascent was supposed to begin, the hikers managed to attract the attention of the police twice. The first time, they were not allowed to spend the night at the train station in the city of Serov. After this, one of the hikers, Georgy Krivonishenko, began singing songs outside the station, but was quickly taken to the police station. Yuri Yudin wrote in his diary, "This is probably the first station where singing is forbidden and where we sat in silence." Later, on their way to the town of Ivdel, a drunken man accused Dyatlov and his companions of stealing his bottle of vodka. However, no guilt was proven and no one was detained. 4 days later, the hikers reached the settlement, where it became clear that Yuri Yudin had caught a cold during the journey and, due to pain in his leg, could not continue the hike. He left his friends his warm clothes, food, and equipment before turning back. The rest of the group continued toward Mount Kholat-Syakhl. Most of the Dyatlov group's journey passed through areas inhabited by the Mansi people, who lived along the slopes of the Ural Mountains. The Russians had converted most of the Mansi to Orthodox Christianity, but their shamanistic traditions persisted. Mansi shamans often worshipped mountains, and some peaks were considered so sacred that only shamans were allowed to set foot on them. However, despite its ominous name, Kholat-Syakhl, which translates from Mansi as Mountain of the Dead, was not one of those sacred peaks. The mountain earned its name because, centuries ago, 9 Mansi people mysteriously perished there. Followers of the mystical theory of the Dyatlov group's demise consider this number significant. It matches the number of hikers in the group. According to this theory, the Dyatlov group wandered into a forbidden area where they were killed, whether by natural forces, supernatural entities, or even a yeti. This version was seriously considered. As supposed evidence, some point to a joking entry about a Yeti found in one of the hikers' diaries. However, the Mansi themselves did not fear the mountain. Their hunting trails passed through it. It is known that the group reached their final campsite on Kholat Shakal without any issues. This is confirmed by diary entries and photographs, which depict an ordinary and uneventful expedition. The hikers began their ascent later than planned, as they had taken time to rest after the long journey. As a result, they set up their tent at dusk, as seen in their last photos. What happened next remains the subject of fierce debate. The only indisputable fact is this: some external factor terrified the Dyatlov group so much that they all fled the tent in a panic, without shoes, hats, gloves, or even socks, rushing down the slope into the freezing night. The investigation quickly determined that the hikers left the tent in a hurry. All their belongings, food, and equipment remained in place. But the main mystery surrounding the end of the hikers does not lie in this. The forensic examination established that death from severe bodily injuries or hypothermia occurred several hours after they left the tent. When, a little less than a month later, the relatives of the students began to raise the alarm, the scandal was initially covered up. The head of the sports club lied, claiming that he had received a telegram from Dyatlov stating that the group was delayed on their route. It also turned out that the group had not submitted their route plan, so no one knew exactly where to search. The first to go searching were not investigators or professional rescuers, but students and members of the sports tourism club. They discovered an empty tent, which they immediately recognized. The tent had been sewn from two four-person tents, and one of the student searchers had been involved in its creation. The tent had numerous cuts of varying sizes, some large and some much smaller. Only later, a seamstress brought in by investigators, after a quick glance at the tent, said that the cuts were made from inside the tent, not outside. This was later confirmed by expert analysis. What puzzled the investigation most was that none of the hikers' personal belongings were missing. There was no chaos in the tent. All quilted jackets, fur coats, ski boots, skis, felt boots, axes, knives, buckets, medicines, bags of crackers, and meat were present. Even money was not taken. Around 2,500 rubles were found at the campsite, some in a tin box in Dyatlov's jacket and some in the outer clothing of other group members. Documents and train tickets were also left behind. This made the initial theory that the hikers had been killed by escaped convicts seem unconvincing. There is a belief that someone was indeed searching for something among the hikers. All of the deceased had their clothing buttons undone. This suggests that they may have been searched, not for documents or money, but for evidence and film negatives, possibly to cover up traces. The story of the Dyatlov group's death is filled with uncertainties, ranging from the overall sequence of events to minor details. To this day, it remains unclear how a military foot wrap ended up in the tent, with another identical one found near one of the bodies. Soldiers use such wraps for additional warmth, but according to Yuri Yudin, who left the group midway, none of the men in the expedition had them. Another mystery is a ski pole discovered in the tent, placed on top of all the belongings. It appeared that someone had attempted to sharpen it with a knife. Why anyone would damage a ski pole, especially since the group had no extras, is unknown. It is also unclear what happened to the pole later. Neither photographs nor the object itself were preserved in the investigation records. The Mansi were the second group to fall under suspicion, an ancient people with wild pagan traditions, and students who had desecrated their sacred lands with their presence. This theory seemed quite plausible to Soviet investigators. Two members of the small ethnic group were even arrested on suspicion of murder. Hunting camp traces were found along the hikers' route, meaning the Mansi could have tracked the Dyatlov group and attacked them after dark. However, this theory quickly collapsed. After multiple interrogations, it was confirmed that there were no sacred stones, totems, or graves on this mountain. It was not considered holy, and the Mansi had no hostility toward Russian tourists. Investigators also found it hard to believe that the Mansi would ignore not only the money left in the tent, but even the flasks of alcohol found inside. Once it became clear that the tent had been cut from the inside, the Soviet authorities released the Mansi from custody. Sometimes markings appear on trees, Mansi writing. In general, there are many strange and mysterious signs. If only we could read them, we could walk the trail without any doubt, without the fear of being led in the wrong direction. From the diary of expedition member Zinaida Kolmogorova, January 30th, 1959. According to Yuri Yudin's recollections, the hikers had a total of 4 cameras. All the surviving photographs are well known. They show romantic travelers trekking through the Ural Mountains, stopping for breaks, setting up their tent. In other words, nothing unusual. The only photo that attracted attention was one from Georgy Krivonishenko's camera. Frame number 33 depicted some glowing objects in the darkness. No one could ever determine what they were. There is a rather simple explanation. A forensic expert, while extracting the film from the camera, may have accidentally pressed the shutter, capturing whatever happened to be in the frame. However, in the Dyatlov Pass incident, the simplest explanations often raise the most suspicion. During the search operation, rescuers reported seeing strange glowing objects in the sky. The spheres moved toward the mountains and disappeared behind them. Later, members of the first search group admitted they suspected that the tourists' deaths might somehow be connected to these objects. The glowing spheres became a new lead in the hikers' mysterious fate, and speculation arose that UFOs could have been involved. Investigators found soldiers who had been on duty the night the Dyatlov group perished at a military base within sight of Mount Kolotsiako. Every one of them confirmed that they had seen glowing objects in the sky that night. The Mansi also reported strange spheres over the site where the hikers died. These anomalies fueled hundreds of theories linking the deaths of Dyatlov and his friends to extraterrestrial civilizations or secret human experiments carried out either by aliens or classified KGB laboratories. To be fair, it should be noted that even today, residents of the Urals still report seeing mysterious glowing spheres in the sky. The first bodies found near a tall cedar tree were Yuri Doroshenko and Georgy Krivonishenko. Both were stripped down to their underwear, and their clothes had been neatly cut off with a knife. Not far from them, Igor Dyatlov was discovered lying against a birch tree, and Zina Kolmogorova was also found nearby. Dyatlov and Kolmogorova were dressed warmly, though the girl was missing one of her shoes. A few days later, under the snow near Kolmogorova, the search team found Rustam Slobodin. All the bodies had abrasions and bruises, and for some reason, Doroshenko and Krivonishenko had burns on their hair and feet. However, Slobodin's injuries were the strangest. The autopsy revealed that he had suffered a skull fracture, as if he had been struck hard on the head with a blunt object. Yet, the skin on his forehead and scalp remained unbroken. Slobodin also had bruised knuckles, as if he had been in a fistfight. Later, researchers who believed that the group was killed by agents who skillfully covered their tracks used this injury to support their theory. They argued that one of the only ways to damage internal organs without breaking the skin is a strong knee strike. The official investigation, however, did not consider such theories. Despite the numerous bruises and injuries, the final conclusion was that they had died from hypothermia. The bodies of the last 4 hikers remained undiscovered until spring. Only when the snow had almost completely melted did rescuers return to the Mountain of the Dead. A hunting dog belonging to a Mansi tracker assisting the investigation picked up a scent and led the searchers to a pair of black woolen pants frozen into the snow. The pants were burned and the right pant leg had been cut off. A little further, the tracker found a woman's sweater, also with a missing piece. In a nearby ravine, under a thick layer of snow, the bodies of Ludmila Dubinina, Semen Zolotaryov, Alexander Kolovatov, and Nikolai Thibault-Brignol were discovered, lying about a meter apart from each other. The discovery of the bodies only added to the confusion for investigators. For one, a few meters from the bodies, There was a makeshift shelter of branches that should have protected the hikers from the wind, yet for some reason, the bodies were not found there. Lyudmila Dubinina was discovered kneeling, with her face and chest pressed against a rock. Zolotaryov and Kolevatov were found lying together in an embrace. Then came details that seemed almost surreal. Some bodies were missing their eyes and lips, nearly all had broken ribs, and all showed significant internal bleeding. Thibaut Brignol's skull was crushed, though the skin remained unbroken. Lyudmila Dubinina was missing both her tongue and larynx, but how they were removed remains a mystery. No cuts or wounds were found in her throat. The forensic expert stated in her autopsy report that she died as a result of great force, followed by a fall, throw, or blow to the chest, but did not specify what this great force was. Many believe in a natural explanation for the Dyatlov group's demise. They argue that the hikers inadvertently triggered an avalanche. While clearing an area for their tent, they disturbed the snow's even distribution, which caused a section of the slope to collapse and bury the tent. According to this version, the hikers who were later found in the ravine sustained their injuries at that moment. Those who were not caught in the avalanche managed to escape the tent and carried their injured friends to the ravine, where they constructed a makeshift shelter. The healthy hikers then tried to return to the campsite to retrieve their remaining warm clothes in hopes of surviving the night, but they never made it back and died from hypothermia. This theory seems plausible, but the problem is that no traces of an avalanche were ever found. Additionally, it remains unclear why an avalanche that crushed the internal organs of some hikers would leave aluminum cups, ski poles, stovepipes, and other gear untouched both inside and outside the tent. Many researchers investigating the Dyatlov group's death focused on the figure of Semen Zolotaryov. Much older than all the other participants, he seemed to be just a regular guy from a base, but with a very strange biography. He had initially served in the army, where he was constantly reassigned from one location to another, which led to the legend that he was a SMERSH agent, or rather an informant who reported on the situation in the field. Later, after the war, he became a Soviet intelligence agent. Zolotaryov was originally supposed to go on the hike with another group, but later, citing the need to visit his mother, he joined the Dyatlov group. There is a theory that Zolotaryov was assigned to the Dyatlov group by the KGB because it had been discovered that one of the members of the group was a saboteur recruited by foreign intelligence agencies. Under the guise of hikers, they were supposed to meet in the mountains, where the recruited tourist would have handed over clothing smuggled from Soviet-closed cities containing samples of radioactive dust that could be used to track reactor activity. However, during the joint stop, foreign spies somehow revealed themselves, after which the decision was made to eliminate the Dyatlov group, cover their tracks, and make it appear as if their deaths were an unfortunate, albeit mysterious, accident. There was also a hypothesis that Zolotaryov wasn't a KGB agent at all, but a serial killer who had joined the group to escape the law. This theory was allegedly supported by strange tattoos on his body. During the last camp stop, he had a quarrel with Dyatlov, and the two groups, supporting different leaders, ended up fatally wounding each other in a fight. Zolotaryov's relatives later claimed that he never had any tattoos. From this, many again concluded that the body found was not his, and the real Zolotaryov had survived. Theories about what happened that night at the infamous pass are multiplying at an incredible rate. The story of the Dyatlov group is gradually turning into a national myth. Every year, thousands of pilgrims flock to the site of the tragedy, but there is still no definitive explanation of what happened to the hikers. What do you think is the correct theory, and what really happened to the tourists?